Good evening, I'm John Carter and welcome to Poland Daily Business. The Baltic Pipe project has received €18.3 million in EU funding for pre-investment work, according to the Polish gas transmission system operator Gaz System. The Baltic Pipe project had previously received financial support under the Connecting Europe Facility programme. In 2015, co-financing from CEF Energy was granted for analytical work preparation for a feasibility study. In 2017, funding was granted for the activity called Preparatory Work for the Baltic Pipe project. The main objectives of the project are to strengthen the diversification of supply, gas market integration, price harmonisation and ensuring the security of supply primarily in Poland, plus Denmark, Central and Eastern Europe and the Baltic Sea region. All the signs suggest that business is booming in Poland. In June, industrial production grew 6.8% compared to the same month last year. Moreover, industrial production last month was 4.2% higher than in May, according to the Statistical Office. The main driver of growth was the construction and assembly sector, which shot up 24.7% in June, in year-on-year terms. Thriving industry is clearly having a knock-on effect on the rate of residential construction. In the first 6 months of this year, builders completed 6.3% more homes than in the same period in 2017. The Polish press agency said that the number of completed houses units reached 83,217, but Poland is still lacking around 3 million housing units. Last month, the government decided to push forward with a bill aiming to speed up the new construction of new homes. A group of predominantly Polish MEPs have urged Brussels to put pressure on certain Western European countries to change perceived unfair rules in the transport sector. In a letter to the European Transport Commissioner, 38 MPs of European Parliament said it was unacceptable that haulers were bogged down by excessive administrative requirements in some Western European countries. The MEPs said this increased operating costs and made European companies less competitive. They also said that work on the bloc's mobility pack, which aims to set up integrated transport policy and support competitiveness in the EU, has come to a standstill. The MEP said it was the European Commission's responsibility to guarantee clear laws on the common market. That's all for me. It's over now to Alexander Wierzewski.
Poland Daily Business Edition. Tonight's our guest is Mr. Artur Wróblewski of Łazarski University here in Warsaw. Sir, welcome to our show.
Hello.
Well, let's start from this trade war that we are all observing. We saw Donald Trump recently in Europe bashing the Europeans for not sufficient input into the NATO. Then he was very kind to Mr. Putin. But the background of this is trade war of United States against China, cheap imports, and against European or German cars. How this will develop?
Wars in general are not good for business, and trade wars are especially not good for business. However, to some extent, President Donald Trump is right in imposing some tariffs on China. I think it's a tool of blackmailing China a little bit. But let's remember that Donald Trump is doing this in order, as he said during campaign when he was running for the presidency of the United States, that he's doing this in order to put trade on fairer grounds. So I think that he's trying to impose its own fair vision of global trade. That's why he imposed tariff on steel and aluminum, plus 50 billion more of tariffs on products from China. Of course, China retaliated. But I think that sooner or later we will see the fruits of this collision, and I think that China will become more civilized in terms of doing business with the United States. Let's remember that China has 304 47 billion of surplus with trade in the United States. In general, it's 500 billion surplus in trade with the world.
And that's yearly.
It's a huge number. So I think that Donald Trump is blackmailing a little bit now the European Union, but also China, in order to impose on them fairer practices.
Do you think it will take to the leaders of the country, their businesses must come to the terms with new aggressive American policy? And will they do that this year, next year, at the end of Donald Trump's term in the office?
Let's remember that in general, a trade war is not good. In 1930, we had already tariffs imposed on 20,000 different products in the United States. It was called Smoot-Hawley tariff. It didn't bring any good because we had depression afterwards and Adolf Hitler came to power in Germany. So back then, tariffs did not work. The question is whether it will work now, short term or long term. This is a big question. I believe it will work. Look, he warned NATO, you should pay more for NATO, at least 2%, maybe even 4%. And I think that countries, allies in NATO, are now starting paying more. I think that after Trump warned that we have to put trade in more organized and more favorable for the United States way, I think we will see feedback soon. And after talks, after negotiations, the trade terms for the United States will be better. Let's remember that the United States is not the biggest GDP economy, but is the most modern and the most innovative economy. Everybody needs the United States. We need the United States. The Chinese need the United States to sell cheap products. So I think that at the end of the day, everybody will be better off, not loser like now, but better off in certain time perspective.
You've touched interesting issue with global, with the historical perspective. We are now observing a 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War, which ended the first globalization period in the world. There were practically no tariffs between in trade between countries, and percentage and volume was comparable to present day or even higher.
Let's remember that tariffs in the United States or in Europe were low right now. However, there were some other barriers, non-tariff barriers, imposed on American products, for example, in China or even in the European Union. Let's remember that United States had very low tariff on many products. However, they have high tariffs for strategic industries, strategic sectors like soybeans, for example, dairy products, tuna fish, or light trucks, for example. There was 20%. On soybeans, I think there was, or peanuts, 132% of tariff. So United States was protected its own market, but in general, the tariffs were low. So I think that Trump is now a little bit under pressure. He was under pressure from big business. That's why he made this decision. It's not a decision of President Trump. It's a decision more of economic advisors like Peter Navarro, the head of Economic Trade Council, National Trade Council.
And we will definitely follow that in our program. Artur Wróblewski of Lazarski University was our guest at tonight's Poland Daily Business. And that's it for this edition. Please follow us next time.